Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Jack Frost nipping at your nose. Yuletide carols being sung by a choir and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tater tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loading lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is going to spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. Hey, what's going on? It's Quinn David Furness. Welcome to my show, Quinn David Furness Presents the Beantown podcast we're recording on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. What's going on? How are you? My name is Quinn, and this is my show. I know what you're saying, Quinn, you just dropped an episode 2 days ago. What's going on? What's happening? And I tell you, well, I told you we would be doing this Sunday when we recorded. That's just how the cookie crumbles around the holidays. There's one rule we have here at the Beantown podcast, and that is we bring you new, fresh, live content every single week that we are live on the air. And I believe this is episode 258. That's 258 weeks where I have been checking in on you. Never once on this show, although we've mentioned it and we've teased it, it's never happened. Never once have we, recorded a month's worth of episodes and then just dropped them periodically. This is 258 separate live installments of Quinn David Furness Presents the Beantown podcast. Welcome to our Christmas special for year 5. I am the creator, the mistletoer, the chestnutter, all that good stuff. Chestnutter does not sound appropriate. Cut that. For this show, Quinn David Furness Presents the Beantown podcast. We are one of the top 500 podcasts here on the north side of Chicago, and we are coming to you live on a Tuesday night. Frankly, just because I'm off today, I had a little bit of time earlier at a brewery, the Guile Brewing, to do some writing for this show. Yes, I prepared slightly, ever so slightly, around 30 seconds, give or take, 45 to be generous. But it's just, the way things work around the holidays. You're busy, you're doing family stuff tomorrow, going to the suburbs, and then, you don't want to be burdened with having to do a podcast out there, and then Christmas is on a Sunday. And I'm close. I'm not going to do it because I'm a little bit gassed at this point. Wrote a big fantasy football note earlier today. So I'm a little bit gassed just creatively. So I'm not going to do a second episode for kind of our New Year's special, which is probably going to be needed at some point, though, because as you all know, brother, the podcast Jack Furness is getting married on December 30th, which is a Friday. We're going to have to carve out half an hour to do an episode there. It's tough because it's good because you got a bunch of family in town and you could have a really fun episode, draw up a concept or something. But it's also like there are so many other things that we have to do and want to do. So not sure how that cookie is going to crumble, but It's a good problem to have. Just like listening to the Beantown podcast, it's problematic, but it's a good problem to have. Hello to those of you on YouTube. It's good to see you. What's happening? What's going on? I decided to go live on YouTube. So if you want to watch this after the fact for audio streamers, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Player FM, wherever you get your podcasts, I don't care. Apple, Google Play, whatever. You can watch us on YouTube. I'll tell you this: if you're coming streaming a couple days later, you didn't join our live show tonight, you're really not missing much. I didn't even go out and get our Beantown podcast live on air sign because it was in the other room. It's literally me on the couch with my fancy new Cubs sweater from father of the girlfriend. Shout out to Rachel Ramos. Shout out to Jose Ramos for his hot new Cubs pullover sweater. It's pretty cool. My first time wearing it. I love it. It's old school. It's got like the Indians colors, like Cleveland Indians. Of course, we can't say that anymore. We can't say Eskimos anymore. I suppose the FCC is going to fine me because I didn't say listener discretion is advised when you're listening to the show. Number one, occasionally some language from two podcast is objectively terrible. FCC is going to fine me for saying Cleveland Indians because you can't say that anymore. But it's sort of got the Cleveland Indians colors. I got my DePaul hat on. I got my Sheen sweatpants, SHEIN. They're hot, hot, hot. I have Sheen sweatpants and probably going to be breaking out my Sheen suit jacket at some point during the family festivities next weekend just because it's a great suit jacket that I got for like $12. I gave it a test run in Manhattan last month and it killed. I was walking down the street. I was like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3 when he's got the cool new attitude and outlook on life, and he's snapping his fingers, and he walks out of the bank, and he's doing the Dante Culpepper, celebration with his hands and his arms. It's good stuff. That's sort of how I feel when I'm wearing my Sheen jacket. For those of you out there bitching, first of all, it's Christmas. Get over it. Second of all, I know apparently it's Shine. I was not familiar with this retailer, Shine, up until about a month ago, I guess month and a half, 2 months at this point when I made the purchase. I don't really recall how I ended up. I think I was looking for just like a solid pair of, you would call them sweatpants. I would call them swoosh swoosh pants because that's the name, or the onomatopoeic, I can't spell that, adjective sound they make as you're walking. Sweatpants can refer to a lot of things, but if you got kind of that soft cotton vibe, that's what I think of when I think of sweatpants. These are kind of the thin synthetic kind of fabric, if you will. They just serve different purposes. Anyways, I think I was shopping and just looking for a solid pair of those because I had a good pair of kind of the softer ones. But my best swoosh swoosh pants, which are blue, which I still wear around the house, they have a hole in the crotch. So I said I needed some new ones. So I was shopping the clearance section. Somehow I found this retailer called Shine, which looks like Sheen, on my Google search or something. So I found some pants there. They have this. If you're not watching the YouTube stream, they're just like regular kind of grayish blue swoosh swoosh pants, but they've got this hell of a kick-ass rainbow kind of stripe going down this side. It's like the next best thing after the Rex Kwon Do pants from Napoleon Dynamite, whatever that actor's name is. Not John Grease, who we all love from White Lotus, but he's in Office Space too. Diedrich Bader. It got this cool stripe going down. It's blue and purple at the bottom, then it gets kind of red and pink, gets back to blue at the top. It's awesome. And apparently, I really don't have any memory of this. Maybe I was drunk, high, both. I don't know. When I was shopping, I also found this kick-ass kind of plaid suit jacket for, I think literally, I have to go back and look at the order. I think the two of them together were like $25. And they're both really like, maybe I'm just stupid and not fashionable, but I think they're awesome pieces of clothing. The sweatpants are just like very standard sweatpants, but they have a cool stripe on the side, which is a good conversation starter. The jacket is totally kick-ass. I know some family and friends probably going to see it in a week here. I'm thinking rehearsal dinner. I'm thinking, reception for dancing. The possibilities are endless. before we jump into our show here. But anyways, that's what you're missing on YouTube. So not much, to be honest. I wanted to mention what we're drinking on tonight's show. we've got our Pendleton whiskey. I got some new whiskey last week, so this is Pendleton. It's pretty smooth. And then we got the last of our 6 2022 peanut butter porters from Saugatuck Brewing. It's delicious. You know what I need to do one of these days, I think maybe just like next time we go to Saugatuck, so I guess next year this time. Well, I don't have to go to Saugatuck to get the peanut butter porter, but I think I have to go to Saugatuck to get the Cracker Jacks beer from Mitten Brewing Company. It's also it's like the peanut butter porter, but even a stronger peanut kind of effervescence. EFFEVER. EFFEVERVESCENSE, I think. Effervescence. It's only, that seems like a lot of letters for 4 syllables. That's pretty tricky. Oh, God. Popcorn. Kernel stuck in my teeth. How did that happen? We're not going to be able to go on with this show until we fix this. I had a little bit of, like, 2 bites of popcorn last night, but I flossed it, thorough brushing, all that good stuff twice. Oh, it's really sneaking. It's really lingering. We're so close. It's all the way up there. You know, if this were just a regular old podcast, we weren't doing a live audio stream or a live visual stream. Oh, we go. Got it. We would have just paused it right there. Apologies for that last 30 seconds. That was crazy. But for me, and that's one of the reasons I don't eat popcorn often. When you get a kernel in a bad spot, you gotta, for me, it's just like, I gotta do it. I gotta take care of it. Because who knows, maybe you forget it tonight. Next thing you know, it's 3 years later and there's still, I don't know, what do you call that? A popcorn, everyone's like, oh, it's a popcorn kernel, but a kernel is like the little unpopped thing, right? This is like the stupid ass shell that comes on the outside. I don't consider that a kernel. And I'm someone who knows corn and kernels. I always place Kernel Mustard and Clue, and I had some corn for 7 summers. So sort of a kernel expert, if you will. But I wanted to mention what we were drinking, and I want to finish the thought on the beer, I want to do an ultimate peanut taste test between the Saugatuck Brewing Peanut Butter Porter and the Mitten Brewing Company Peanuts and Cracker Jack. I think that's what it's called. I think I might be a bigger Peanuts and Cracker Jack fan. It's just stronger. It's a little bit saltier. The peanut butter porter is vintage. It's classic, and it's absolutely delicious. I love it. And I fell in love with this first. And for what it is, it's amazing. I think the peanut butter or the Peanuts and Cracker Jack is a little bit like fuller bodied, if you will. If that makes sense. The peanut's stronger and it just has a little bit more backing to the peanut flavor. So they're just kind of different, but I think I like the Peanuts and Cracker Jack a little bit better. Granted, I've only had it twice in my life, so it's kind of hard to know. I wanted to, before we get into it, we're talking Christmas myths today, Christmas myths, live on the show. And we're going to try to keep this from being crazy long. I know we were shorter last week, longer the week before. I want this to be a very standard, solid episode. We don't, spoiler alert, there's, Santa Claus is not coming to town. We don't have any special guests lined up. No one's calling in. This is just me, you, and myself today on the show. Excuse me. But I did want to shout out to our sponsors real quick. Thank you to our friends at Home Pride Oregon. When you need your home inspected in Central Oregon, you got to call the expert, someone safe, certified, someone you can trust. Call Steve. He's my dad. You can find him at 541-410-0316. You could also use it, I don't know, if you go to Market of Choice, try it out for the employer discount. You could go shopping at Fred Meyer, see if there, you get some sort of rewards points, 10 cent off your gas fill up. I don't know. The number is publicly available, so I don't feel that bad about it. When I go shopping at the Jewel-Osco here in Chicago, division of Albertsons, I use Betty and Jose's home phone number, and that gives me all the sale prices. I don't feel bad about that. They're the ones getting the points, okay? Self-sustaining economy. Go to homeprideoregon.com. Tell them Quinn sent you for 0% off your next home inspection provider. Home Pride Oregon inspection perfection. It's been a frantic start. 15 minutes into the show here, you might think, wow, Quinn, you're blasted. I'm not. I had 2 rounds at Beguile Brewing while I was doing some writing. And that was a holiday flight, which was 3 5-ounces of different holiday flavors they had. 2 of them were very kind of tart and sweet. I thought they were very similar and unnecessarily similar. And then I had 16 ounce of an IPA, essentially. So that was my math, 31 ounces, which is basically 2 pints. And now I'm drinking my whiskey and my peanut butter porter. So it's like, yeah, that's a healthy amount for a Tuesday in the late afternoon. But hey, I'm off, man. I'm living life. This is my 3rd straight day off, Friday, Monday, today. And then technically the university is closed beginning now, essentially. And I'm still doing some little things here and there for my other 2 jobs. But frankly, I kind of set my own hours with that stuff. And I can sort of determine how much or how little I want to work. So I'm really just leaning into it. I will say before we finish our ad reads here, I have to mention that Rachel, my lovely GF, shout out to Rachie, this morning when she asked me what I was going to do today, or last night, I don't remember, I said, well, I'm thinking of going to see, because we've talked about this many times on the show last month, Avatar 2, Way of Water. Way of the Water. And, Rachel's been making a lot of fun of it, saying I don't like blue people. They're stupid. Those indigenous people, they should have their rights stripped from them. In general, indigenous people, they don't belong. And I said, whoa, stop, because you don't know what you're saying. Like, you don't want this to go live on a podcast or something. But I said, I think I'm going to go, because Tuesdays apparently at the Landmark Century Cinemas at Clark and Diversey, right where I used to live, apparently they do $7 shows all day. So I was like, boom, matinee, I'm down. Let's do it. It's a 3-hour movie, Way of Water, here I come. And Rachel said, well, no, I'll go see it with you. I think Rachel's in it for the Diet Coke and the popcorn, which is fine. But all that is to say is I was going to go see Way of Water today, and then I didn't. So we're still yet to see it. So please, no spoilers. If and when you email beantownpodcast@yahoo.com, again, that's Beantown podcast@yahoo.com. Please do not spoil Avatar 2 Way of Water. My prediction is that one of the kids dies at the end of the 2nd act. Maybe one of those heroic, patriotic Marines played by Stephen Lang takes him out. And that sends Sam Worthington, who apparently is still an actor, into a fury. But here's my question. They're already working on Avatar 4. Where are they going to go from here? I've heard that Avatar 2, the visuals are great, but the story is just kind of like whatever. My question, that's not a surprise. That's kind of what we all expected. So my question is Avatar 3, Avatar 4, and I think they're going up to 13, I think is the final number. What are they going to do with these stories that's interesting? Because Avatar 1 was literally just dances with wolves, and there's like a million other stories that are that exact same plot. And Avatar 2, I actually don't know anything about the plot. No one's really spoiled it for me, which is good. But I've heard there's not much of a plot. The 3rd act is great, but mostly it's just visually stunning. My question is, we've had Pandora, which is land. We've had Wata, which is water. Where are they going for episode 3? The sky, presumably. But they already did some flying around in Avatar 1. So maybe they could go to outer space, blue people in outer space. That'd be pretty spooky. I don't know what James Cameron has up his sleeve, but I know he can't do Wata again. But maybe he will. Who knows? Because that first movie made like $1 billion, actually. So one of these days, hopefully around Christmas time. I know our days are limited, but maybe we could go on like, I think Rachel still has to work through Friday. I don't know when we're gonna go. I'm getting stressed out thinking about this because every day that passes by that I haven't seen Way of Wata, I feel just left out from society, in a sense. Which I'm a societal guy. I'm social. I'm sociable, and I just want to feel included. I haven't been able to tweet about Way of Wata, even though it's been out for almost a week here, and feel kind of like a loser, honestly. So that's where we're at. To finish our ad reads, we have our good friends at Samson. We're talking into it right now. Our good friends, the Samson Q2U series, from Genesis to Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and then the actual one where Samson shows up, which I think is First Kings or Second Kings. Either one doesn't matter. I don't know why we needed two. Like, we already have some long ass Bible books like Psalms, Lamentations, Job. I think has like 40 chapters. So why did we need a First Kings and a Second Kings? There's no reason for these arbitrary splits. Let's just throw them all together. We can have one Kings, one Chronicles, one Samuel. Well, how did these people decide that Samuel was going to get two books? I don't even really remember who Samuel was. Obviously not important. Daniel, is that a Bible book? I can't remember. I think so. I think Daniel is one of those where he goes to the lion's den and there's, he's working with King Darius, who's Xerxes' dad, and Daniel sees the writing in the wall. I don't really know what the writing said. It was in Hebrew. We never got that translated. Speaking of writing on the wall, great OK Go song, amazing music video. It's got one of those Rube Goldberg machines. Don't let me forget. I got to listen to them later. And a brief side note to just say, and I think about them actually frequently. OK Go, Chicago band, one of my favorites. I've seen them live before, actually. I think they were at the Vic. I'm not sure. But the thing with OK Go is what happened to them? They're still semi-active and stuff. And they made that one song. Excuse me. They made that one song during the pandemic, All Together Now. But they just haven't done anything. Not to disparage them. I think, multiple of them have young kids. But this isn't meant to be, sorry, I got sidetracked for a second. This isn't meant to be disparaging at all. It's literally just curiosity. Like you're a musician is your thing. And I know they've done some creative stuff that's not just music. They've done some art stuff. But I just wonder from a financial perspective, obviously they're making it. But if you're the drummer, Dan Kepka or whatever his name is, in OK Go, and you they haven't put out a record in 5 years, I think. It's been even more than that, 8 years. I'm not sure. They're not playing shows. They did one really random ass show at Niagara Falls 6 months ago or something like that, but just one show. It's not OK Go's on tour. And they put out one single in mid 2020, whenever that was, not part of a larger project. It's what do these guys do to survive? Do they make enough when they were a hot band that they're just not really working? They got to be doing some things, music related or otherwise, to keep their lives afloat, right? I don't know. I would love to have Damian Kulash or DePaul and Tim Nordwind on the show, or Dan Kepka, or whatever the guitarist's name is. The second one. They have two guitarists. The original one and then the new one. Andy Buckley was the old one, and the new one is Andy something else. Two Andys. That's what they put on their Craigslist ad. We're looking for a kick-ass guitar player. Must be named Andy, so as not to confuse our fans too much. All this is to say, when God speaks, he uses the Samson. We got to hurry up here because we haven't even gotten to what we want to talk about with 26 minutes in. This is ridiculous. Finally, our good friends, Cuts by Q, just did a little fresh Cuts by Q today. I might need a slight touch-up. I just did the back. because the back was kind of all over the place. It was a jungle out there, like Randy Newman says. And I kind of got unintentionally like the Chris Bryant like point going on in the back. So I suppose if I want to be like a kick-ass third baseman for the Rockies, who's oft injured, I love the word oft, O-F-T. You usually have to use it with a hyphen. Then I think I look good, but I don't know. I was going to say we need a second opinion. Well, I know exactly what it looks like because I did some funky shifting around with the mirror. So I just have to decide if I'm satisfied with it or not. Do I want the point? Do I want it straight? I think the point is kind of new. It's kind of modern. It's kind of trendy. It's kind of edgy. And those are all words that most people use to describe me. But I don't know. We're going to have to decide. Straight is just so boring. But I kind of, if I didn't have a brother of the podcast wedding coming up in 10 days here, then I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But I just, not that anyone's taking pictures of me from the back, hopefully. But, there's probably going to be a lot of famous people there, esteemed dignitaries. What do you think you got to do just in life in general to become an esteemed dignitary? I don't know. When you need a fresh do something snappy or new, just call the experts at Cuts by Q. All right, welcome to part 2 of the Beantown podcast. We haven't stopped once because we've been live streaming on YouTube, and there's not really a good way to pause that and resume. So we've just been firing it up. And GarageBand seems to be working great. The Mac has been very responsive today. About to finish out 258 episodes here, knock on wood. Last thing I want to mention before we get into exposing Christmas myths, and I know it's just the time of year when football is on my mind a lot, if I'm being completely honest with you, and I try not to make this a football podcast. I know we talked about, because it's just not that interesting. I talked about it for a hot second because that Colts-Vikings game last week was crazy. And then we did a whole episode dedicated to the Colts or the Vikings-Bills game because that was just ridiculous. But I did just want to very briefly shout out the entire Furness family this past weekend as of the end of the Packers-Rams Monday Night Football game last night. 5 for 5 in fantasy football wins this past weekend. Sister of the podcast, Abby Furness, was in the toilet bowl against cousin of the podcast, Hunter Dennison, who won our league last year. He got married Labor Day this year. He represented our division, and Abby kicked his ass in the toilet bowl. She had her highest scoring game of the year. And then before Ferni, yours truly and Walt, oldest brother of the podcast, we play in the same division. And then Jack and Steve, brother and father of the podcast, also play in the same division as each other, not as us. Excuse me, along with Abby. So Jack, Steve, Walt, and I all had our individual games. I played Steve Johnson. Walt played cousin of the podcast, Jake. Jack played first cousin once removed of the podcast, Kyle. And my dad played our commissioner, Uncle Andy, who's been on the show before. You all know him, Jack Lynx. Anyways, we crushed him. It was ups and downs, roller coasters, things that take way too long to explain. But all you need to know is we have 4 teams remaining in the Great White North's historic and storied 17th season this weekend, beginning Thursday night already. It will be Jack versus Steve and Quinn versus Walt. Winners will square off in a championship game. If I win, then which I really don't think is going to happen. If I win, then I will be playing against either Jack or Steve, and both of those teams are the 2 teams I've played in the championship game and my 2 wins. So it won't be anything too new. And all 4 of us have won before multiple times, I believe. None of us, we all have at least 2 championships. I think Jack has 2 championships. I know my dad and my brother Walt have 3, I think. So it's the rich get richer here in the Great White North. And no complaints here because I've worked my ass off for it. I don't think I get a lot of credit because it's just like a small family league, no money on the line, just bragging rights. And, there's really only 2 or 3 of us who are really just super invested in trying to do well week in, week out. And this isn't like a hype yourself up podcast, but I work my ass off at this stuff. Put a lot of time into it. Very proud of the results. It has been just the rockiest of rocky roads of a season. Literally lost my number one draft pick this last week after one touch. Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Lion King, and Home Improvement fans will know. And Wild America, Oscar winner. Lost him after one touch. Lost my second running back in the third quarter, and we still won. And what that means for this week is I have no clue what we're going to do. We could realistically lose to Walt by about 75 points. That wouldn't surprise me. The last thing I'll say, I honestly feel like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where he gets one arm chopped off, second arm chopped off, both legs chopped off. He's still ready to go. That's honestly how I feel about my fantasy team. My wide receivers have been pretty stacked all year. And to be perfectly honest, like Joe Burrow is consistently awesome, even with his sliced pinky this last week in the Bucks game. But my running backs, dead. Tight end, not dead, but you look at the point production, you say, okay, basically dead. Stream, just bad defense decision this past week. Looked good on paper. So it's just like I've really thrown the kitchen sink at the Great White North this year, and it's got me this far. So we just keep doing crazy shit, essentially. And I don't know. We got lucky this last week. We'll see what happens this week. I wanted to get to the meat and potatoes, the actual topic of today's show, 33 minutes in, which isn't so bad. And this is the last thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to finish up, I promise. Mostly because I want to eat supper. I didn't eat. Let's see. I had coffee for breakfast and ended up having 2 slices of bread from our soup on Sunday for lunch. And so I just kind of went through today without eating accidentally. So I'm excited for supper. Let's put it that way. But I wanted to expose some Christmas myths, and I wrote Christmas myths, and I wrote enough down here to go an entire hour of just this stuff, but I'm not going to. And the Christians in the room, the right-wing nationalists, are really going to want to turn it off here. But I wanted to mention, and some of these are probably things I've said in the past. Some of these things might be brand new, but these are really in no particular order. I was just doing some brainstorming earlier today. I mentioned I was doing some writing at the brewery. And these are not really I literally just wrote down random things in my phone's notes app as I thought of them. Number 1, Mary being a virgin. Okay, you are not convincing me. It's never happened before. It's never happened since where someone a human asexually produces. Dude, Mary, and I'm just, okay, a quick timeout for the prudes listening right now. No offense to you. I'm just going to let you know that from here until the end of the show, I am just going to use whatever language I am feeling in the moment, and I don't apologize for it because it's just how I feel, and that's how my internal monologue runs. And this is not a show that is trying to protect people's feelings. This is Quinn David Fern's presents the Beantown podcast. Okay, unpause. Mary and Joseph were totally fucking. Not a question. They weren't careful. They ran out of condoms. She wasn't on the Today sponge. He didn't pull out in time. Look, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying they were totally banging. And instead of welcoming the ridicule that they were responsible for, bastard child, hooking up before marriage, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I don't cast judgment. If you want to get, you want to bang before marriage, who cares? I don't care. I think you should. Imagine getting married to someone you never had sex with and then finding out you're not sexually compatible. It'll be like that Saoirse Ronan film on Chesil Beach which is just a nightmare. And that was one night, right? You can't have that. So Mary and Joseph, I'm not calling you out because you wanted to, you were horny. I'm saying, like, don't create an entire religion, based on it and be like, oh, Jesus is this miracle child. He has this magical father who no one can see named God, all because you were like afraid of being chastised by whomever, the Bethlehem Star or something, which is the newspaper back in those days. On parchment, Mary was not a virgin, okay? Like, the Catholic Church is going to blacklist me for this. But I've said what I want to say. Okay. Remember that Randy Moss press conference when he decided he was, or not decided, he was, dude, Merry Christmas to you, Kyle Ligon. Thanks for tuning in. My old basketball coach, believe it or not. You're coming in at a great time because we are just railing on the Christmas church, much like Joseph was railing Mary behind that Shepherd's Inn. But what I wanted to say was, oh, shoot, I lost my train of thought here. I don't even know. Oh, when Randy Moss got traded back to the Vikings in 2010, 2009, whatever the second Favre season one, which was an absolute disaster. He had that press conference on, and press conferencing is like, pull your 84 jerseys out. I'm coming home. And then they made a like remix song out of it. It's pretty good. It'll take you back, 15 years, 15 years to better times. Brett Favre, rest in peace. I don't think he's actually like going to prison, is he? And obviously, nothing's been charged yet. He's just in like shit creek without a paddle, I think, with all this stupid welfare stuff. How can you be? Well, I'm not gonna say like how can you be this stupid, like you're that rich. I understand it because there's always more money to get. Like, I totally understand that. It's a human thing. But just how can you be that rich and be like, you know what? Let's scam some elderly people so we can have more money. Like, what is there left to do if you're Brett Favre, where you're like, you know what? These old people, fuck them. Let's like swindle them out of money. Swindle, SWINDLE, so we can say like, what do you need at that point? I don't know how much money Brett Favre made in his career. It's not as much as, like Brady, obviously, and then Mahomes and these younger guys are getting crazy contracts. But let's just figure it out right here. And he lives in Mississippi. So my rent up here is $2,300. Brett Favre's rent is probably like $700 a month. Brett Favre, how much money? This is hard to do with one hand. How much money did Brett Favre make? Well, we'll just find his net worth. According to Sportskeeda, whatever that is, net worth $100 million. This other one says $110 million. He earned apparently about $140 million in contracts as an NFL quarterback. For context, base salary, all three of my jobs from the time I started working full time when I was 22, that's been almost 7 full years now. Best guess, Quinn has made around, I don't know, conservatively $300,000 to $400,000. And Brett Favre made $140 million. What do you need to scam elderly people for? I don't remember how that relates to Mary not being a virgin, but that's the point I wanted to make. We're exposing Christmas myths. We're exposing Brett Favre here on the show. It's a whole separate episode. Moving on here. Okay, Mary and Joseph, they ride donkeys into town, apparently. I don't know why they were living in the sticks. Anyways, like, you should be in the center of town, close access to buses, subways, trains, light rail, whatever. There was no room at the inn, okay? We mentioned the mythical being that is God, G-O-D, 5 minutes ago. So you're telling me that Mary and Joseph get to the inn. You have Jesus, who's inside of Mary, who's also God, which is weird, triumvirate. God had 3 in 1, threesome, foursome, really, 3 in 1, 3 in Mary. Woof. But God is omnipotent. He's omniscient. He's omnipresent, which I always felt was weird to say. Omnipresent, like it's just a weird word. There was like a Bible verse in Second Timothy or something. You had to memorize it at Winston A. Tawana's class, and that whole premise was flawed. It's like you have to memorize that whole thing. Okay, time out. You go to class, you go to have fun on Wednesday nights. There's three parts. There's games led by Tom Perkins or Commander Bob. There's the message, if you will, which was like a guest speaker every week. You know, John Sprecher, Brad Beaver, John Sprecker's son-in-law, Brad, what's his name? The guy who got arrested for, molesting a underage girl or whatever it was. Good stuff, love the church. But the third part is where you like go into your group, like, so it's like all the third grade boys together, all the fourth grade boys together. There's 5, 6, 7 kids in there, whatever. The whole thing is you have these books that are like adventure books, but they are interspersed with Bible verses. And the way you like level up, the way you progress is to memorize a Bible verse. This is a lot of times when we talk about like the church and Christian things, it's like, oh man, that's fucked up. This isn't fucked up. This is just like very unproductive. The whole thing you were supposed to do during that half hour or whatever is like read your book that has the Bible verses in it, read it to yourself. And then I'm not kidding you. I don't know how like common or popular this is still among like church groups, like kids groups, youth groups. I would estimate that it's still a thing. It just feels really weird. You are just supposed to like memorize it like you would memorize a piece of music, memorize, a poem, like memorize a Bible verse. Hand your book back to your, group leader or whatever, recite that verse to them. And if you get all the words correct in the right order, then you get to progress to the next verse. But you never go back. It's not like, oh, you have a test at the end of the semester. Here's like, what did you remember from the verses you memorized, quote, because you would just memorize it in that 30 seconds, say it, and then you get to move on. You don't retain that. It just feels like a really, I know you're young kids, you're like 6th grade and under, but that just doesn't feel like if I had like created my own religion and I wanted to like spew my beliefs upon kids, that's not how I would approach it. Maybe that's just that Masters of Science and Education policy in me that I took a teaching and learning class, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right. Basically, what I was trying to say is there's no room in the end. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. He couldn't afford 40 shekels a night for, the Radisson, the Four Seasons, the Holiday Inn, Bethlehem. They could have definitely afforded the America's Best Value Inn that Rachel and Amanda, Rachel's sister, and I stayed in. The three of us in Champaign when we went for Dad's Day weekend back in November, because that place was a dump. Shower didn't work. It was spooky, but we made it. We survived. I think I would be less critical of it if it was more affordable, because it was like, I don't know, like $230, $250, $300 a night, something like that, something absurd. Moving on here with furthering exposing Christmas myths. Because every time I say it, it's not an accident, or it's not purposeful. It is an accident, and I end up lisping it. The shepherds, hearing from an angel of the Lord in all caps, Lord, in a field, and the angel's like, do not be afraid, yada, yada, yada. Okay, those shepherds were definitely hallucinating. There's no magical angels in the sky. I'm thinking like they were smoking some doobies, maybe some grass, maybe some fermented hay, like Colin hay. I can't get to sleep. I think about the implications of diving in too deep. For any people out there who are not fans or unaware of Men at Work, famous band of Colin Hay. Go check it out. I mean, Overkill is a great song. You all know Land Down Under from just radio play. There's a couple other songs that are pretty well known by those guys. But I think Overkill is great. Played it on an episode of Scrubs. Basically, those shepherds were totally high. And absolutely, there were not just these magical angels just roaming throughout the sky being like, hey, go to Bethlehem. Like, dude, no, those guys were smoking some serious joints. Okay, the wise men. That's got to be like, that's like a stripper like group name, like Welcome to Chippendales or something. Okay, the wise men were definitely gay, right? I think wise, they're, how do you even know? Like, what do you do in BC times to be characterized as a wise man? Like, you could call me a wise man. I got multiple degrees. I know a lot about fantasy football. Am I a wise neuroscientist? No. Although I know that you got your DNA, your RNA. There's like 4 things in DNA. There's like a T, a U, some other ones. And you got your cell wall, your mitochondria, your Golgi bodies. So I'm a wise man, I guess, in neuroscience too, but not, probably not other things like Russian. I don't know much about Russian, so I'm not a wise Russian, but I'm wise in other areas. So what do these guys do to become wise? I think it's a mistranslation. I think they're gay. And once, the translators, whoever it was, Peter, Paul, or Mary, figured it out, it's like, well, we can't, because we're apparently, even though Jesus didn't say anything about this, apparently we're doing like an anti-gay agenda, which, dude, if the church way back in the day had been pro-gay, they would be so powerful now. Can you imagine RuPaul and hosting the 700 Club? I don't even really know anything about RuPaul. I know that there's RuPaul's Drag Race. I think RuPaul is a person. I think RuPaul is gay, but I really have no idea. I've never seen the show. I don't know anything about RuPaul. I don't even know what RuPaul's real name is. The church would be unstoppable. So the three wise men were definitely gay. And then, also you're doing like flamboyant gifts. Like, okay, most people, you go to a baby shower and you give them a bib. You give them a cute onesie. You give them a fun winter's hat. You know what the 3 wise men were doing? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You might as well do just like, gonna pause myself there because I can't think of anything good. Also, don't want to like anger the gays. Seems like a bad career move for the Beantown podcast. But I just want to say, like, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. What is a 3-year-old kid supposed to do with that? It just seems very flashy, a little flamboyant. Nothing wrong with it. But what is a 3-year-old kid supposed to do with like myrrh? I'm 20, about to be 28 years old. I don't know what to do with myrrh. I can barely spell it. Myrrh. Myrrh. It's one of those words with no vowels. Speaking of which, I haven't played any of my word games today. I have a 3-for-1. I go Wordle, I go Wordle, and I quote Quordle. I haven't done it yet. I thought about doing it live on air, but then I realized I have to pee. I don't really want to extend the show longer than I have to. And also it took, apparently, according to historical records, for my research I did in my head, it took the 3 wise men like 3 years to get to Jesus. What were they doing? Babylon or wherever Jesus was born, Israel. Israel didn't exist until the 1940s. We can't call it that. Judea, Philistine land. I don't really care. The Middle East, I guess. It's not that big. Pull it up on a map. It's like, oh yeah, you can go, boom, boom, boom. 3 days, you're done. Donkey, foot, that cool speeder bike that Anakin Skywalker raced on Tatooine to go to see the Tusken Raiders when his mom Shmi Skywalker was captured by Tusken Raiders and he went into the camp And he killed them all, not just the men, but the women and the children too, like animals. Whatever you're riding, it doesn't take you 3 years to get to Bethlehem, okay? So they were lollygagging. I don't really know what they were doing all that time. Seems like they hesitated a little bit. Maybe they said, no, we don't want anything to do with this random ass brown kid. And then the Spirit of the Lord, all caps LORD, maybe blackmailed them. He said, if you don't come out to see my son, then I'm going to expose your coming out party. Again, because they were gay, apparently, which doesn't really tie in with the rest of the conspiracy that I'm exposing, but it just seemed like a good thing to throw in there. Last two things here. We're moving away from the Christian tradition. Where is Hanukkah in the Old Testament? We got a whole bunch of Christmas. We got the 4 Gospels, which 3 of them tell the Christmas story, I think. All but Mark, maybe. I don't know. Luke definitely does. Matthew does, I think. It's either John or Mark. I can't remember. But Hanukkah, you got your 8 candles. You got your menorah, your bar mitzvah. Here's a question. Did Jesus have a bar mitzvah? Obviously, if yes, it's something the Christians don't want you to know about. But if no, where is this kind of Jewish agenda pushing the Jesus bar mitzvah? That's absolutely something we need to know more about. And it's Hanukkah spelled with an H or a C. Okay, let's get to the bottom of that maybe next year's show. Finally, I am convinced that there is a new Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer every year, much like Punxsutawney Phil. Look, reindeer are real. They are not magical, mythical creatures who live on year after year without aging, like Benjamin Button. They, I don't know what let's see, reindeer lifespan. Love Google, man. The average longevity of reindeer is about 15 years in the wild to 20 years in captivity. Every 15 to 20 years, Santa Claus says goodbye. He takes them out behind the woodshed where all the elves sleep in their slave bunks. He shoots Rudolph in the head, and they breed a new one. And they bring in the new Rudolph, and no one bats an eye because Santa's a fucking white dictator like Idi Amin. Go check that out. And boom, you got a new reindeer every year, or a new Rudolph every year. So those were some Christmas myths. Finally said it right, that I wanted to expose live on the Beantown podcast. I said we were going to keep it shorter, but then the whiskey kicked in and I got into the exposés and just, I think it was a good episode though. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everyone, whatever you celebrate. Christmas, Hanukkah. I really don't mean to offend any religious groups or people who identify in certain religious ways. I just think that organized religion is bullshit. I think community is amazing. I think believing in some sort of unseen mystical power is just stupid as hell, frankly. Again, not offending, not attempting to criticize or offend any individual person. I just think certain beliefs are short-sighted and can lead to negative, real-world, impactful consequences. That's how I feel about organized religion, in case you were curious. Merry Christmas to all. Good luck to the 4 Ferni left standing this week. In the Great White North semifinals, as we look to crown our 17th champion, or year 17 champion, if you will, because it's not going to be a new champion. And that's more or less what I got for you. I got some chili mac in the fridge that is calling my name. I got pee like a racehorse, like a reindeer. And thank you to our Mac for just being a total true professional throughout this entire podcast. No bumps, no freezes, no nothing. Sounds great. And finally, and most importantly, thank you to the listeners, our beanheads. Remember, you can always check out new episodes of the show at soundcloud.com/Beantown Podcast or beantownpodcast.com/podcasts. You can also email us, beantownpodcast@yahoo.com. Again, that's Beantown, BEANT podcast@yahoo.com. Thank you to our sponsors, Home Pride Oregon, Cuts by Q, and the Samson Q2U series. We really appreciate you around this time of year. I do not know exactly when we are coming out with our New Year's Eve, New Year's Day special. That is TBD. But I hope you get some time to spend with your family, with your friends, and certainly, most importantly, I hope you get some time to spend with the Beantown podcast. So I hope that everyone has a great day. I hope that you have a great holiday. My name is Quinn David Furness. I want you to stay safe. I want you to stay sane. And I will check in on you next time. Bye.